All right, let's get to the Jaguars. The news came out from Jeremy Fowler earlier today. I don't think it was shocking news by any means, but the Jaguars will not pick up the fifth-year option for linebacker Devin Lloyd. The reason it's not shocking is they already had the option to pick up his option when they picked up Trayvon Walker's fifth-year option. And when asked about it, Liam Cohen basically said, well, we need to learn more about the player. Well, you have the same exact time to learn about Trayvon Walker, so why didn't you do obviously the answer really was, no, we're not going to pick it up, but I'm not going to tell you that right now.
Yeah, and I had to ask the question.
Sure.
Because we needed to know, but
Yeah.
I think that, yes, it was certainly a sign of the times of if you haven't actually had Trayvon Walker in the facility, and certainly I think he was in the facility at different points during the offseason, and I would like to believe Devin Lloyd was as well, but not in a full-time capacity in the offseason program. Why pick up his fifth-year option and not Devin Lloyd's? I think an interesting part of it, too, that needs to be noted is this idea of the fifth-year option, what the tag price number would be for both if you were to pick it up comparatively to what you could pay Devin Lloyd if he does have a great fourth season here in Jacksonville, and if you could come to some sort of compromise compared to what the open market is currently deeming is the asking price for top-of-the-line linebackers, and if he actually falls into that field, if you may, and where he falls into it.
Yeah, and I think that when we had this conversation originally, I said, maybe it depends what happens in the draft, and then the draft comes and two linebackers get taken, and so that does make you feel like they maybe wanted to have some other options. And we've talked about the amount of competition that they've added between free agency and the draft and how that may affect things. And so we will see as time goes. I also feel like we haven't quite seen the perfect fit, the perfect place for Devin Lloyd in the defenses that he's been here. So maybe Coach Camp does find
the charm.
Yeah, maybe Coach Camp comes in and does find a place where it works for Devin Lloyd, and then we are talking about some sort of contract extension next year. But I do think I don't think anybody's shocked in this move whatsoever.
So what's interesting, and this is from the Jaguars in-house video team, they released the video calls of all of the draft picks being selected and who spoke with them. Obviously makes all the sense in the world to have Anthony Campanelli speaking with Jalen McLeod. The idea of Tem Lakabu, who is the linebackers coach, speaking with Jalen McLeod was a little bit interesting to me, just because I think so many of us were like, oh, he's going to be a primary edge rusher. He'll be edge 4, if you may, if he beats out Miles Cole, which the expectation, given when they selected him, and from Mike Silver's great piece from The Athletic, certainly James Gladstone and company are high on the Auburn product.
And Emmanuel Ogba, too, now.
And Emmanuel, he's edge 3. I'm saying edge 4.
Yeah, behind
Emmanuel Ogba is edge 3. Let's get that out there, Lauren. Put the narrative out there. Point being, I think that it was interesting for me to hear Tem talk to him, because then if he is going to play more of that buck linebacker role, that off-ball linebacker, chess piece, if you may, that he played at Auburn, then where does that leave Devin Lloyd? And once again, we go back to this idea of what did he do well at Utah? He certainly could affect the quarterback on designated blitzes. Are you going to line him up on the edge? I don't know. But they lined him one time against the Cleveland Browns on the first play of the game in the A-gap, and he just goes screeching like a bat out of hell through the offensive line.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying you need to make him a designated pass rusher, but what I am saying is that Devin Lloyd is at his best when you tell him, you do this.
Yeah.
This is the one thing I need you to do. Maybe this is the staff that finally does that and is able to find a role for him that way, whether it's, on second down, we're going to line you up in the A-gap, or maybe we do line you up in a wide 9 and you're just going to go get the quarterback. Or, hey, it's a run play. Just clog it up and be the great run defender that we know you are, and utilize that sure tackling ability. And of course, and we talked about this yesterday with regards to Jack Kaiser, Taylor, and we're going to have Malik Zaire on at 1 o'clock. This idea of Devin Lloyd's inability to read pre-snap, and Jack Kaiser being one of the best college linebackers last year at doing that, and how that will free up Foye Oluokun potentially, coupled with the continued growth of Ventrell Miller. And so then, yes, at that point in time, Devin Lloyd's basically a Sam linebacker. But at the very least, if you only give him one assignment, then you don't have to worry about Foye trying to line him up in the right place. And Devin Lloyd has to be thinking about 3 different potential areas of the field he may have to go to.
Yeah, I do think they were trying to do way too much with a player that needed to be kind of central focused on one thing. And when you look at his numbers from last year, his pressure rate was good. His run stop was good. His tackling, he had really good tackling when it comes to like not a ton of missed tackles and stuff like that. It was all the coverage that hurt. And it was, I glanced earlier, it was like almost 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. He allowed almost 12 yards per catch and like almost 400 yards after contact. That's stuff that can't happen. That you need that linebacker that's going to be able to handle that type of thing. And I will talk to Malik about kind of that area of what Jack Kaiser can do and maybe the role that he will play, because he did a lot of different things on Notre Dame's defense. I'm not quite sure where the Jags see him here, and I tweeted that when he was drafted. But I do think that is part of it. I think they're looking at Devin Lloyd's game and saying, okay, this guy can be good at one thing, but the linebackers nowadays have to be good at multiple things.
I think this staff looked at the roster from last year and said, where can we eliminate slow playing? And not to say that the players themselves are slow, but in the schemes that they were in, whether it's offense or defense, they played slowly. We talked about that with Jarian Jones. We've talked about that with Devin Lloyd as well. And so I'm not saying that they thought Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram were slow, but I think just for what they want to do in their scheme, they weren't going to play fast enough offensively. And I think Devin Lloyd, to this point, maybe it'll change this year with a new scheme, has played slowly, and that's not something that they want on their team moving forward.
Well, and I think it's because his head's in a beehive, in the words of Quincy Williams, another great Jaguars linebacker. Shout out to the All-Pro, because that's what Quincy said after his rookie year. And again, look, when Dave drafted him, no one knew Telvin Smith was going off the deep end. Like, Quincy was expected to have a little bit of a runway, and instead it was, okay, week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Get on out there, converted safety. And I think it bears fruit and is true for any player at any position as you come in as a rookie. And ultimately, and this is probably more of a question for Coach Campo, this idea of when the going gets tough, we always hear coaches say, well, we're going to simplify things. We're going to ask less, not less, because we're still going to expect your best, but we're going to make it more direct of, hey, this is all I need you to do. Hey, simply go back to fundamentals and tackling. And I'm curious, because at one point last year we joked about it. We were like, okay, like if you're that simplified, what is there left to simplify? Yeah. Like if it truly is simply see ball, get ball, or see rusher, go get the rusher. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think we talked about that too with Miles Jack. I remember when Miles Jack got the green dot and everyone was like, was it too much?
Yes.
Was it kind of slowing down the instincts because he was having to worry about so many other things? And there's very few players in the NFL in general that can do everything and be able,
and also be
Devin
telling,
Lloyd obviously doesn't have that green dot. I'm not saying that, but just in the fact of having to do and control too much for some players, it does need to be, the defense simplified in general, but their role simplified sometimes helps them excel in the things they're the best at.
You shouldn't have to simplify after the season, by the way. It should be that everything builds as the season goes along.
Adjustments during the season would have been nice. But.
And I still don't know to this day, and maybe a player in the not in the near future, at some point down the line will tell us in December 2023 when Doug Peterson stressed that they were getting back to fundamentals and they were going to simplify things, what exactly that was. But I think a huge part of this too, and that's why I think for Devin Lloyd, the instruction needs to be very direct, and it needs to be, you are doing this one thing on this one play. And on the next play, you're doing this one thing, because then it frees up Foye Oluokun to not have to be telling people where they should be lining up on the field so that he can do his job too.
Yeah.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.